And this is Ysadora back again, and I am going to do the question and answer portion, which unfortunately, yes, I was late on it. I'm Western Australian, so we tend to run everything late. So, first question was there a defining moment in your life when you realised that crystals and indeed elements of witchcraft had real power and effect? Awesome question. So this is kind of like a bit of my origin story going on. What had basically happened is I had previously worked in science, and it was actually medical science. I worked in the field, got very, very ill, and ended up with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. So I ended up being quite sick. And I went through every medical option I could. And previously I had worked with crystals and things, so I thought, hey, we'll just give it a shot. I'd been sort of looking at crystals since I was quite young, so let's go and see what happens. And it worked. I am now still having problems, but previously, I was bedbound. So at the age of 23, when you're bedbound, you kind of think life's at an end. And I gave it the science I gave the crystals a shot, researched a lot of the science that's actually coming out behind it, and lo and behold, it worked. So as a result, that started getting me more and more into into the crystals, which then kind of naturally ended up going into a bit more of the witchcraft way of doing things. And I found that things worked. A lot of the sort of more meditational processes ended up being quite effective. And for me, it's not about sort of spells and incantations as much as your intent and putting intent into things. So that is largely where that all started out. Going on to the next question. What would be a good protection spell for family and friends to keep them safe? Okay, one of the ones that I really like to sort of do is to sort of use a lot of crystals within my spell work. So what I would do, I'm just going something there, is use something like black tourmaline. Black tourmaline is an incredibly grounding and protective stone. So I would get as many black tourmalines as you have family members. Gather them up. You can then use various other crystals, various herbs and bits and pieces. I will probably pop up a bit of a list of them at some point. And sort of sit with them. You can burn the herbs over it. You can cleanse the stones off with something like frankincense even. And make sure that you program them to each family member. Now, I'll talk about crystal programming at a bit of a later date because it's something that's quite in-depth and it would take a lot to get into. But yeah, what you would then do is program each and every piece for a family member, hand them one out. If you're doing one within your house, then there's certain ways you can do things. I would really recommend setting up a full house grid. So creating a huge crystal grid to fill up your entire house sort of thing. This isn't saying crystals all over your floor, as awesome as that would be, but more putting them around at very, very certain places around the house. And I will also go through gridding at a later date as well. So, the next one is, where or how do you start? This is actually a really, really broad question because if it's to do with witchcraft, then yeah, most of us obviously started out with our experimental teenage phase. So a lot of people sort of go into it a little bit then and start dabbling with it because it's a bit edgy and things like that. But as you sort of grow up, there's really different facets to it. I really recommend just reading everything. There's a lot of stuff out on the internet now. There is some really amazing books. I absolutely recommend a lot of things written by Cassandra Eason. She's an amazing author. And you can't go past Scott Cunningham. He is a genius of witchcraft and he writes in a really accessible way. So if you get any of these books like Wicca, Living Wicca, things like that, as well as Earth Power and things, Wicca obviously is aimed a lot more at the actual Wiccans, which I am not. I'm a pagan witch. But you can go to them, or if like me, you're more of an Earth witch, a pagan witch, then you read Earth Power and Earth, Air, Fire, Water. And both of those are like two really good sets of books depending on what you're interested in. So absolutely start reading. A lot of it as well, it does tend to be intuition based. So a lot of the things that I tend to do is like research ahead of time, start thinking about the things like that, but then spend some time with the actual materials, especially if your spell work. Just work with the materials a fair bit, have a lot of contact with the herbs, start to know how they feel and how they start to react. And that's where it's really important to sort of use a grimoire. I am also doing a video about grimoires and spell books and things. So that's one of the really important things that you can use them for, is noting down all of that kind of stuff. Hopefully that answers that question. Next is our last one. How could we amplify healing and love in day-to-day practice or ritual? This is actually a really awesome one, and I'm really glad it got asked. One of the main things that I like to do is just by wearing certain crystals. I don't go without various bits and pieces that I wear. I wear lots of sigils and bits and pieces like that. So a lot of those are set towards amplifying my own healing energy as well as working with people around me. I have them all over the house as well. There is crystals in almost every single little nook and cranny. The cats love to play with them. Other than that, there is like a lot of good things that you can do. I thoroughly recommend the gratitude diaries. They're really amazing because they ask you about setting intentions, and they give you like good ideas for being just happy overall, and as well, like, you know, being grateful for the things you do have in your life. I find that when you start getting grateful and happier about various things in your life, you do start to exude a lot more of that love and that happiness and all of those sorts of beautiful feelings. Other than that, there is obviously crystals, like rose quartz is a really important crystal of love and the community and things like that. So it really helps you to sort of come together with other people, and it also can actually inspire other people to have a bit more of a loving energy when they're around you. So that could be a really nice, important one you could use for that. Other than that, there is like healing crystals. There's amethyst, which is always a really great one to go to. There's clear quartz, which is a great general healer. So you can carry different crystals like that on yourself. As far as individual rituals go, I find a really, really good one would be one that you can either do at the start or the end of the day, depending. But start writing down what you're grateful for, and actually set some time aside for doing it and set it as your own little ritual. And when you do that, you can actually start to really look at the things in your life that are actually pretty amazing, and you automatically start getting a bit happier and feeling a bit better about things. And you can also then, as a result, set intentions. So if you on a day want to exude more love to those around you, write that down, set that intent for the day, and then go out and see how well you can do with it. Crystals are a great support and things like that, and they're really good to help you get these things in action, but it really is about you yourself. So you have to be the one to carry through with them and to work with them on a really active level. So thank you for asking that. There is one more question, however, I do think it deserves its own video. So I will be back with that one later on. If you have any more questions, feel free to pop them in the comments or contact me on Facebook or Instagram, any of the million ways that you can get in touch with me. 3 Marigna, very easy to do, very easy to remember. Otherwise, even send me an email. Go for it. I would love to absolutely answer more of your questions. So thank you very much for listening today, and I will catch you all later.